So, of course, in these years, since it started, the Syrian Revolution has gone through many changes, many different phases. It has evolved, but at the same time, it has undergone many setbacks. So I was talking about this topic with a few friends a while ago, and there are people who have always supported the Syrian revolution, both Syrians and foreigners, let's say, who claim that the revolution is dead. For many reasons. They say it because it is a fact that the regime has reconquered most of the country. It is a fact that the revolution in part has been in the hands of other foreign powers and so on. Personally, I believe this revolution is still alive, but it's entering a new phase. And what do I mean? When I say a new phase, I mean that it cannot be the revolution of the beginnings, of course, also because we know that many activists that were there in the beginning are not there anymore. Either they have been arrested and we know nothing about them, or they have actually been killed. But now the revolution needs to cope with the current reality, and find new solutions, possibly even creative solutions to what is happening. And I believe that for the revolution to continue and to actually achieve its purpose, it's necessary to not believe reality too much. I will explain to you what I mean by this. In these years, the Syrian regime, while reconquering the land with the aid of foreign powers, because we should remember that Bashar wouldn't be in power if it weren't for Russia, most probably. So in these years, the Syrian regime has, in a way, succeeded, although I don't like to use this word, in making people believe that the revolution never existed. If it existed, it was not worth it. And he is convincing many people that its power is strong. Many people have said to me, do you see the Syrian regime has come back stronger than before? No, this is not true. The Syrian regime actually is very weak. It's maybe it looks like it's powerful because it's giving out images of power like all regimes do. But it has, we say in Italian, it has mud feet. So feet that can melt anytime. And we should pay attention to this and not believe what we see too much, because I believe that it will be much easier for the revolution to reach its goals when we don't believe what we're seeing too much. How could we expect Syrians to be organized first in their resistance, then in the revolution, when they came out of decades of dictatorship? So all the mistakes that were made, in my opinion, and I don't want to condone all these mistakes, but I am really convinced of this. Syrians started the revolution, and then they were all of a sudden facing the emergency of, let's say, war, of military attacks. And how were they supposed to organize themselves well and to know what to do, even in these years when they came out of a climate of dictatorship that had been lasting for decades? it's already hard when you come out of this type of reality to know how to gather, to know how to exchange ideas. And we as Italians know very well, because we went through a similar process many years ago. It's not easy right after a dictatorship, well, in this case with a dictatorship still in power, to know what to do. So for me, all the mistakes are, can be explained in this way. 10 years, 11 years in history are not a long time. And I think we should understand this. These processes are long processes. And if it's easy maybe to change, political institutions, it's much harder to change the way people think. And the problem is that Syrians, between themselves, among themselves, still don't trust each other, because they come out of dictatorship, and this is normal. They're still fragmented. They are trying to elaborate their trauma while trying to achieve the purpose of a revolution. So this is how I explain all these mistakes. Okay, so in a way, yes. It's not completely their fault, actually. There are, I think, two sides of this coin. One side is the fact that, do you know that many Europeans, and I'm sorry to say that this, at least many Italians, because I'm Italian, as you know, don't even know where Syria is. And after 11 years, it's still very, very hard to explain to Italians, for example, who are not familiar with Syria, who are not familiar with the Middle East in general, to explain what has actually been going on in these years. So on the one side, it's not Syrians' fault, because many Europeans don't know about Syria, don't know about its history. On the other side, and this is a very practical thing I have seen as an activist, I believe that the excessive use of Arabic, so linguistically, has not advantaged Syrians in trying to convey, this, what was going on, the revolution ideas, to explain what the regime was doing. Unfortunately, we have been sharing a lot among ourselves, among activists. And this is another point again. I believe media campaigns have been always perfect, but on the other hand, we weren't probably making the right moves towards governments and institutions. We weren't lobbying enough in our countries. And so this is not just a Syrian mistake, it's also a mistake of us, foreign activists. This is also our mistake. No, actually, I don't think the message was conveyed, effectively. I think we should also consider that European media was also conveying an image of what was happening that was totally against the Syrian Revolution. So when the Syrian Revolution started, the rhetoric of the clash of civilizations, of terrorism, and so on, was still very strong. And it was very, let's say, easy for Western media, for European media, to portray the Syrian regime as, let's say, the defender, of non-religious values against other forces. So the Syrian revolutionaries were very often, let's say, assimilated to extremist realities. So I don't think the revolution was able to convey successfully to its purpose to the European public, but it's not I think mostly was due to the representation European media, and I would like to underline once again Italian media because it's the one I know better. The representation that was being given was sometimes completely different from the reality, from what was going on. This is a very tough question because I've been thinking about it non-stop for years. So I am always for finding new solutions. When we see in everything in life, when we see that the old solutions, that the old methods aren't working, we should always try something new. Personally, I believe, which, as I was saying before, we should try to lobby more with political groups in our countries that actually know about the revolution, that know about Syria, and that have always also fought somehow against the Syrian regime, for example. In Italy, there are political movements. There is, in particular, one political movement that has always stood against the Syrian regime, but we've never been able to establish a strong connection with them. So maybe they're not so powerful in the Italian parliament, but I believe that we should have backed them more in doing so. So first of all, we should lobby more with political movements and parties in European countries that actually know about the Syrian issue in the right way, I would say. And I think we should start using Arabic a little less in our international campaigns. It's not because I don't love Arabic. I think Arabic is a wonderful language. It's a beautiful language. But unfortunately, to reach a European audience, a Western audience, it is necessary to use other languages. And I believe we should do this very simply, to use English more or other languages that are more known in European and Western countries. So quite simply, of course, the world is a very big place. And there are so many issues, so many problems every day coming from many different countries. I think it's when the main media is not talking about Syria so much. Of course, it's very hard for a normal person to focus on Syria, especially now. So maybe we should get in, try to influence the news, the important media more, so that, and not just in the Arab world, but in the European and the Western world, try to pressure media more so they talk more about Syria, so that they actually broadcast more about Syria. So, of course, there is a huge humanitarian problem. And, of course, we cannot deny this. We cannot ignore the fact that millions of Syrians are living in conditions that are not, that are not acceptable, simply said. And this is something we should face, and it's impossible to ignore it. We have to deal with it. We need to restore dignity for these people who have lost everything. And on the other side, sometimes I'm afraid that we use too many slogans and we use too much feeling, too many emotions. when we talk about the revolution. And I'm the first who makes this mistake sometimes, because feelings actually makes us, makes us feel connected to each other. So I don't see this necessarily as a negative trait, but we cannot, let the revolution just be, the flag and slogans, although the flag is important. Slogans in a positive way are important. Remembering the martyrs is important. We should back, this emotional part more with with actions. So as I was saying before, campaigns that are aimed at pressuring governments, at pressuring institutions to actually do something about the Syrian situation. And of course, the Syrian situation, as you were saying before, right now is mainly humanitarian, but, just sharing campaigns and slogans among us, supporters of the revolution, will not make this cause proceed further if we don't actually go to the right places claiming Syrians' rights. So generally speaking, I don't know if you know that in Italy, there aren't many Syrian refugees. Maybe in the last few months, we've had more, because there is a very important Italian organization that is organizing humanitarian corridors, especially from Lebanon. So there are a little, more Syrians, but not like in Germany, in France, and so on. So generally speaking, I've been around Syrian communities in all Europe. I've been very blessed to do this. And I can tell you that generally speaking, I think that Syrians give, in most places, a very good, idea of them. Syrians are hard workers, and they have this ability to put away their sorrows somehow and start rebuilding everything from scratch. So they are actually thriving in many parts of Europe. And I think this gives a very good idea. Also, there is a new generation of Syrians that is now studying, that is now achieving great results. But you also know very well that not all the Syrians that came to Europe are supporting the revolution. So this is one part. And the other part, I think, is that many Syrians in Europe are not politically active. And there are reasons for this. On one side, I believe that after all the trauma, after all the loss, many people, especially young people, want to start living a normal life. And the other reason is that many of them still have part of their families in Syria. And understandably, they are afraid to talk about politics openly, not to endanger their families in Syria. And I cannot judge them for this, honestly. I cannot judge them, although I must admit that after 2016, when Aleppo fell back into the hands of the Syrian regime, many Syrians, for example, in Italy, stopped coming to protests. And this was a huge setback for the revolution. But I cannot judge them for this. Of course, I would probably act in the same way if I had my mother or my sisters or my brothers in a country where they risk being arrested, where they risk being tortured. So, yes, I think this is the situation. So, as you know, even the countries that before were openly opposing the Syrian regime, in the end have haven't done anything decisive against the regime in the past. Right now, there is, of course, a tendency to rehabilitate the Syrian regime, and this is a worldly tendency, as you well know. And there are rumors that many embassies that were closed almost 10 years ago might be reopened. So in Italy, this rumor has been in the air for at least 2 years. The Syrian embassy in Italy was closed, I believe, in 2012 or 13. And Italy officially, was against, let's say, the Syrian regime. But we know very well that at an intelligence level, there have always been contacts. We know that some politicians went to Damascus, Italian politicians. We know that there are Italian organizations, especially belonging to the extreme right wing, that are humanitarian organizations that are actually collaborating with the Syrian regime. So I believe that many countries are changing their attitude because it's because of Russia, and because it's actually, from a realistic point of view, this is what they should do to also to encourage even though there are still sanctions both from the US and the European Union, to re-encourage little by little economic and commercial relations. So I believe this is, I believe that the role of Russia shouldn't be underestimated in this, because I think that Russia actually leads a good part of European politics, also of Italian politics. And when there is a diktat from Putin, I believe that many will follow. I'm sorry if I'm so open in this and I'm so, straightforward, but this is, I believe, what is happening.